Originally in Spanish, 2019-2020. The horoscope, popularly used by humans, is for the most part garbage. This is because the controllers do not want normal people to have real astrology. Hence the saying, neither normal people nor millionaires use or believe in astrology. But billionaires and royalty do believe and use astrology all the time. They do not use astrology itself because that is hidden knowledge for humanity and is only shared in elite circles, but very high up. This is because it gives them power they do not wish to share. Compressing everything with a 20-ton press, astrology is an energetic dynamic in the cosmos, a relationship between frequencies propagated as waves in the ether, like gravity, that are the ones that have the proper harmonics to form what a person or point of attention consciousness is. So, it is not that the stars influence the person, but that person is the energetic conjunction of all the stars, near and far. The stars and their positions are only an indication of what the person in question is. It is a signature of the person. Again, it is the other way around. It is not the stars that influence the person, but they give the clues as to what the person is like. So they are not controlling the person. They are just giving clues as to who the person is. The person is in control and is the way he is for other reasons of his own. Past lives shaping his perception, for example. It is not a deterministic position on the astrological. Rather, the astrological explains or can make us see how that person is. Because if the person were different, the energetic disposition of the stars would be different for that person. The individual is what matters. It is who creates. And the stars are just more people, more consciousnesses or points or nodes of the ether. But then, one can also explain astrology as peopology, or seeing how the other people around the person influence him or her. All the same, tell me who you hang out with and I will tell you who and what you are. The cross is the best symbol for astrology because that is the symbol of astrology. It is only the average people who see it as a symbol of something else. Originally in English, January 2023. About Pluto entering Aquarius, March 2023 to 2044. Is it correct to say that this transit will first unleash all the dirt about the Great Reset and push the people in power to implement even more control through technology? Pluto is related to Shiva, the destroyer of worlds. But Shiva, is a destroyer of bad worlds, so the evil cabal is very afraid of Shiva and his energy. This is the esoteric reason why Pluto was degraded to planetoid from its former status as planet. It is a planet in its own right, elliptic orbit or not, and there is no real reason for it not to be. It is all esoteric, and the cabal fearing Shiva. As of why Pluto is referred to as Shiva, it is very old, going back to the very myth of Shiva himself. It is said that when he returns, he will vanquish all evil on earth. As to how he is planning to do that, well, I still think this is substance for myth and not much more. Nevertheless, as an egregor even, the fact is that it does influence Earth and what happens in it. But it is not a direct influence as such and as something literal. You see, for stellar races, especially for Taygetans, the stellar objects don't influence anyone in the way they say on Earth. What is going on in the stars is a reflection of what is going on. So it is another case of humans seeing things backwards and reflecting their own deterministic way of thought. When someone is born, you can mark that exact point in time and space using stellar dates and maps, not only dates as they do on Earth. The point in space, or on a stellar date map, is like a fixed snapshot of where each stellar object was when someone was born. So later on, observing the movement of the stars and stellar objects can help you understand someone or yourself. Same here with Pluto and Shiva. Pluto entering Aquarius, the transition between the era of Pisces and the era of Aquarius is said to be around 2012 to about now, and it is or may even be overdue. It is supposed to bring a lot of good change, and many on Earth relate it to the coming of the so-called New Earth, its ascension to 5D and all that. So, if you place Pluto entering Aquarius, oh wow, the cabal starts to shiver. In their esoteric reading, astrology reading, it basically means that Shiva will destroy the old Earth to implement the new being the one in 5D, in the era of Aquarius. That's the meaning I see to that. According to the Federation archives, Shiva was an Andromedan explorer. But is there truth to it, to that happening? Or is it just something they fear, but something that doesn't have real sustenance? Do you give any importance to this transit yourselves? It is important because they see it. And it is important because just everyone on the know on Earth sees it that way. For us, we know stellar objects are great masses of consciousness, and we are all connected through the ether. So what they do is a reflection of who we are, and we also affect them. In general, this transit is seen as a progression in the stellar date and map, meaning the point in time and space where stellar objects were in that exact position. So it helps coordinate between stellar races, helps set dates for just about anything, like a meeting somewhere. It is the best thing we have that even looks like a common clock because, as I've said before, time is very relative and changes a lot from planet to planet, location to location. Other than the above, we don't give it any further meaning. Aquarius in astrology is linked to off-worlders. Therefore, I was thinking Pluto, the great revealer, entering Aquarius in March, could unleash a lot of ET disclosure. Would you agree with that? I see the astrological point to that from their point of understanding. It would be logical. But as I understand things to work on Earth, it doesn't mean anything at all. If the powers at be want to disclose something ET, then they could or would use that time or moment. Yes, that is how they work. But I wouldn't count on it. It is as vague as me saying that I will disclose important things only on my birthday. Okay, but you did say that what's happening in space is a reflection of what's happening. Yes, but understanding how the Cabal thinks and what the Federation wants. If there is an ET disclosure come March, it won't be life-changing. Only another silly, the Pentagon is taking the video of F-18 pilots of the US Navy very seriously. And all the UFO gurus going nuts over that, using it to make videos about disclosure and events and books and all that rubbish. Sorry. They are up to their noses in ETs down there. If they can't see that, then it is their problem, not the ET's problem, if you know what I mean. It could also unleash non-powers at be ET disclosures, just more disclosures, period. Like what Mari is doing. It might fall into that, Mari's work. I feel it's not a coincidence. You know there aren't any. No, there aren't any. Aquarius is linked to new technology, and Pluto to healing modalities and DNA. What is happening with our DNA? Is it being upgraded, or will it be upgraded? A lot of people talk about those DNA upgrades. Is that New Age, or what's that about? I feel it is mostly New Age, but there is some truth to it. What I understand they are saying is that as you all move into the so-called New World and into 5D, human DNA will change into a more crystalline form. But how I have heard that is that it is very New Age deterministic in ways. As in everyone's DNA will change, like it or not, and not having to do any work on themselves. In my opinion, no, it won't happen that way at all. Having said that, when someone ascends in consciousness and awareness, the person starts to be a 5D being. What I mean, and as I've said before, people have to be the 5D new world they want to live in, not wait for it to happen to them. If they wait, they will continue to wait forever. They have to be the change. You are a density, you don't live in a density. But when that occurs, then your DNA will change into the crystalline form they are talking about. You change the DNA being the light being. The DNA does not change you. The DNA only is a reflection, a materialization, and a manifestation of the being. And when enough people on Earth ascend in consciousness, then the average existential frequency of the planet will change, and will go a lot higher, causing a chain reaction. Because the dominant frequency of the planet will rise. So from that angle, everyone will be affected in a positive way. But as we've seen, Earth is not the best planet to find elevated positive beings. There are many. But in general, the truth is that the Earth is as it should be, according to the manifestation desires of the average population there. So there are no upgrades done on a human DNA by the ETs? In an individual level, yes, and there is nothing new about that. Most abductions are for precisely that. People on Earth see DNA as a blueprint for their body and destiny, for what they are physically. DNA is a crystalline condensation or manifestation of memory. It is a record of who you are and of what you have done in your past lives and present one. From the point of view of your own timeline, DNA is memory. You decide what gets written there, not the other way around. Another example of humans getting things or seeing things backwards. So if we decide that, why do the abductions even take place and can have any effect on us? They get the abducted person back into their life track, the one the person decided for itself before entering into physicality. Life on 3D Earth may be very distracting and can make people get easily lost. It is a temporary fix, or setting the subject's memory back to what it should be. I see Pluto in Aquarius as a potential time for the big die-off. Do you think a lot of humans will die in the coming months, years? Pluto and Shiva are not related to anything negative for the people or for the planet. It means the destruction of the old paradigm. Shiva also represents the energy that exposes all the lies and all the liars. Yet, in a more personal opinion, yes, it could mean that, likely related to papayas. Another related comment. It is being said everywhere that there is a mass extinction going on right now. And it looks to be very obviously so, even from here. The problem with that is that our strict scientific data, recollected with drones and sensors, such as the ones in Toleka's frontal boom, indicate otherwise. It looks like wildlife is doing very well and thriving. So are the ecosystems that sustain it. This data also backs up what we are saying, that in strict terms, there is no overpopulation, only overpopulated spots called cities. Mass extinction of what species? All species. That is what the globalists are pushing. Plants and animals, wildlife in general. It may not make any sense, but the scientific data is there. They are thriving and doing well in a global scale. The why may be complicated, and the Taygetans are still chewing on this. But that is what the hard data is showing. We are passing to another transit. Saturn entering Pisces, March 2023 to May 2025. Our fellow astrologer Meg was seeing this transit as the return of woo people, intuitives, Pisces, as being part of the new leadership groups in our new society, Saturn. Would you agree with that? This transit can be seen as the weakening Saturn, of the immune system, Pisces. Being a Pisces myself, it feels kind of weird. Yes, I am forced to agree, astrologically speaking. Although I do not see the weakening of the immune system, can see what that could be, unless again it relates to papayas. Pisces in astrology can be linked to communism and the rise of the political far left. Do you think we are going to see the universal basic income being implemented? Now, I don't like the term far left, because nowadays the left is politically associated with the Democrats in the USA. And the people you are referring to there are more like anti-dualistic, new mentality starseeds, doing their best to implement a social structure more like, or in the direction of, a full holistic society. Okay, what about that universal basic income? It is a plan the globalists want to implement, and it is a basic salary for everyone on Earth, government-based. The problem is that, although it sounds good at first, especially for the poorest people, it is a trap, because it makes people depend on their governments that, at the same time, destroy the middle class and all the small businesses and all entrepreneurs, medium and small. So what they want is to make people depend on their governments for their very survival, making them docile and obedient, or else their basic income will be removed. The people will have no choice but to comply with everything the governments want to do to them, such as more papayas and similar agendas. Basic income is the cheese in the mousetrap. Do you see that happening? Yes, people can't see it as a trap, and it is slowly being implemented worldwide in programs such as help for people with special needs and the elderly. I do see it coming, first in some places, then in others, depending on the poverty levels and the political system there. For example, it is already starting to come out in some places of Latin America, like Mexico, for example. Nodal axis changing to Aries, Libra, July 2023 to December 2024. This usually points to a new karmic lesson that we have to integrate. This time, the North Node, Rahu, will move into Aries, asking us to become more individualized, separated from the herd, and more self-actualized. You would agree with that? In general, moving into Aries does mean individualization, but it also means clarification, as in defining whatever is under its influence. That's why it is linked to individualization, as the limits or everything become clear, as if the fog lifted. This goes exactly hand in hand with Shiva's energy and Pluto entering Aquarius, defining things, being able to see them as they are. The dissolution of the liar and the lies, a personal defining integration. Is it true that only 30% of the population are truly able to be individualized in this lifetime and able to free themselves from the herd? I read that in an evolutionary astrology book. It is nearly impossible to place accurate percentages to the population, as the data is very unclear and hard to define or get. However, 30% does sound like what I feel with my mind's eye, that would be the correct figure. But noting that inside that 30%, there would also be a gradient of awakened people from the lesser to the more. And now the problem is that nowadays the word awaken or awakened people has been so abused it shouldn't be used anymore, because it is like an excuse to justify all kinds of separation agendas, those meant to place one sector or segment of the population against the other. Racism, genderism, political agendas all fall into the awakened ones. This started to take on strength with the movement that was backing up Trump during the last elections in the US, being that both sides were working together to create the illusion of a political fight in the minds of the people. What has been hacked by the Cabal in the reincarnation cycle? How is it being hijacked? There is only one way to hijack the reincarnation cycle, and it is the old way that they have been using from the beginning of the Cabal, at least, to mind control people into wanting to reincarnate, and wanting to reincarnate into what the controllers want, to convince a soul that it has karma to pay or whatever other excuse, always placing it into a karmic guilt thought pattern in order to manipulate it to go back. But souls go back into the earth for their own valid reasons all the time. I mean, there are plenty of true reasons to go there, because it is a beautiful place full of colorful contrasts, and the experience there is rich and unique. So it is only logical that souls grow attached to living on earth and to have another and yet another experience there. People in the New Age community, or the spiritual community for lack of better terms, always seem to present the earth as a place from where souls must escape from. I understand that life on earth is very hard, and harder for most. The problem here is that from the other side, things change. You see and value life experiences from a different perspective. My point is that souls go back in there willingly. No one is forcing them, only creating more reasons why they may want to reincarnate there once more. Another day. So, talking about astrology, souls choose to be born on a specific date because the astral alignments fit who they are to then indicate to themselves and others what they are like? Not as in choose, more like in the energy and your frequency dictates that you are a match to that date. As with everything else, you are a frequency match to that date and that astrological sign, and to everything that goes with it. Okay, it was said once that stars and planets are like people, and how it relates to having friends in your life. They indicate what kind of person you are. This would mean stars and planets have personalities, etc. But how do astrals relate to our personality in the first place? How are those conclusions reached about what personality trait relates to what signs? You must first make a sort of map where you relate one personality trait to that specific star configuration, being that the planets are the astral objects that are closer, and so they tend to have a larger influence on people, as said. And that is what zodiac signs are for. They are basic personality traits associated to planets and their transit through stellar constellations. How were the associations done? Through observation. Exactly like observing when there will be a climate change during a year, the development of seasons, and, for example, the observation of when the river Nile overfloods, creating the good fertile soil ready for growing crops in it. So with the stars. When people have a certain group of personality traits, certain traits, they can associate them using that person's date of birth with the position of the stars and planets above. Those observations have to be ancient. Yes, they are, or were ancient. A very slow recollection of data, where the priests and the astral observers wrote down those associations through the ages. Also being helped by off-world people who taught them how to record the data. How does my soul know about these associations to choose to be born on a specific date and time? It is not a case of knowing as such. It is again a case of what a soul is. Personality traits are a frequency, and as a frequency, they tend to go with what is a match to it, and that frequency match will concur with the frequency of a zodiac sign. Pisces didn't define me. I hold a frequency of Pisces. A person is a certain way because of its soul journey, all the thoughts and all the experiences it has recollected, consciously or non-consciously, lifetime through. This creates a frequency pattern that is like a blueprint of a soul. So stars and planets in general also have those frequency patterns, so a soul will be born where it corresponds. For example, if a Pisces holds a frequency of 70,032 and the planetary and stellar frequency of a certain date is of 7,032 or close enough in the frequency value, then that soul will be born when those stellar alignments occur. But everything has consciousness and is alive, so why doesn't the alignment of, say, trees and rabbits on that day matter here as well, for example? Yes, of course, all rabbits, plants, rocks, dogs and cats, and two-way streets and candy bars are also affecting your frequency, as the stars are. It's just that stars can be traced and mapped, and rabbits are harder to track. And stars and planets are big things in space that hold a lot of gravity, therefore of consciousness. So of course it will tend to influence people and souls a lot more than bunnies. Except if you like them so much, you are around them all day long, and they are a relevant part of your life, then yes, a bunny does influence you a lot more than Neptune. Note something. It is the same principle of a starship jumping into hyperspace. It will go to where it is a frequency match. Does that configuration continue influencing you, as they say, or it's fixed and only applies to you when you get born? You hold that frequency very much so during your lifetime. But lifetimes are meant to be evolving, so yes, it does change as you go, depending on what you do there. For example, Tina is still a Pisces, but she is tagged as having a birthday on March 2nd, while Mari and I are from March 8th. So there is a slight frequency slip there, because we are different people. But as you go through life, your frequency print is different after 50 years than when you were born. Yes, it doesn't work in a deterministic way. You can change your personality. May take a lot of work because you are working against your powerful unconscious, but you can. Of course, if you didn't change at all, then it would be a waste of incarnation. Another day, originally in Spanish. Astrology related. Does the moon have any importance here, being an artificial satellite? The lunar influence, being as it is artificial, or as astrologers describe it, has always been total, the most affecting after the sun itself as a star. The same happens with Taygetan. Since it is no longer there, it creates an important energetic lack that rearranges everything that happens in the area. There is talk of a 13th zodiacal sign. It seems to me that it is associated to the lack of Taygetan, as in 13, but they reduced it to 12 because Taygetan is missing. But all this is very stretched. I see more point to the 12 signs as they are. Having a 13 creates an imbalance. Why does the moon have influence if it is artificial? In another way, because of what it generates, everything affects. But not from the deep etheric point of view, in the sense that we are all connected. Not like that, you are right. And again, its artificial frequencies unbalance everything.
Everything? The whole solar system? Or just the Earth?
Mostly the Earth, but the moon obeys the Federation operating from Saturn. But as a celestial body, it doesn't affect the same way because it doesn't really have the mass or the gravitational effect to affect the solar system by itself, because it is a ship. But they say that it has an influence on your birth chart, the position of the moon, or something like that. So is it true that it has the same role here as the other stars? Yes, even though it is artificial. And that helps to contain the matrix, or to matrixify human astrology, which makes it weak and even of dubious usefulness. It is isolating the population from the influence that they should have from everything outside. In other words, and you will understand this because it is the same thing from another angle, it separates the population as much as possible from the original source. It weakens their connection.
You are saying that human astrology separates the population from the original source?
No, what happens is that the moon and its artificial influence separates the population from the original source, weakens it, but does not break the connection with the source. And with it, astrology is also weakened, resulting in weak astrology as it is interpreted on Earth. So, do you recommend considering the moon in astrological readings, or should it be completely ignored? It is like trying to perceive candlelight and study the frequency of a candlelight while having a car headlight bulb on in the same room. You can't ignore it. Rather, it's not so much direct influence as astro. It's that the moon fills everything with energetic junk. It's like trying to stargaze with a telescope one night from downtown Las Vegas. Good luck.
Let's say the moon interferes.
Yes, it interferes. Does it make the birth charts, for example, when you are born according to the alignment of the stars, not accurate then? Or are they still valid? Valid, but not as valid as they should be. I understand. And do you use that? Do you look at the astral alignment at birth to understand more about who you are? Or is it not necessary, having already less veil of forgetfulness? I am talking about Taygetan in general. It is used, but not necessary most of the time. It can be used to understand someone else, for example. Looking at everything from the perspective that the astral positions represent like a fingerprint of one's energy.
And knowing that the moon makes interferences with the astrological charts, is there any way to avoid those interferences? Or not?
From Earth, I can't think of a way to avoid that.
So the Viera does some interference too?
Not with astral charts. It's just a ship. It's big, but no. Although everything ultimately interferes and affects, even the molecules, because everything is intertwined. But this way, from the point of view of the astrology subject, it doesn't interfere. Then why does the moon? It is also a ship. And moreover, it is lifeless. Because of the frequencies it projects? It is not so much because it is bigger. It interferes because that is why they put it there. Because it emits frequencies destined to interfere with the psychic connection to the astral, which is exactly the same as having psychic connection with the original source. I understand. Okay, and the last question. Something that came up yesterday on the show with JC. If, as souls, we have that energetic imprint, something that defines us and makes us be born on this specific day, reflecting the alignment of the stars that expresses who we are, that imprint in the next life will make us be born on the same day as well? Since the essence of what we are does not change, right? Or we are born on other days in next lives because we are always changing. For example, if I'm a Leo in this life, is it possible that I totally change later on and I am born as an Aquarius? First of all, that does not make us to be born in that moment. To be born in that moment is who we are. It is who we are. That personal frequency is what is equivalent or reflected in the energy that the stars emit on a certain date, when they were in a certain position. And yes, who we are evolves. We are not always born on that date. Everything is moving. It accommodates as our spiritual development progresses.
And the walk-ins, what birth chart would they have? The one from the day that they entered the earth, or the person who left their body?
They have to have a concordance with their existential frequencies, the original and the walk-in. That is why they have been compatible.
The Mantis star races to astral charting? And the Irma and all of those non-humanimorphs?
Probably, but I don't know. I've never wondered about that. Urma do. They are very astrological cats. That, yes. Perfect, thank you. One more thing that occurred to me. Does all this also apply to animals? If they are born on a certain day, time, does it also reflect who they are? In other words, these astrological charts can be done for dogs, for example, them being people too? Of course, it also applies to animals. It doesn't matter, they are people.
And if I make an astrological chart for an ant, is it for all animals?
You don't know when it was born. You would have to have an exact date, unless you observe its family very carefully beforehand.
but could you know what it is like or not because of its hive mind?
With a supercomputer and with the data, it might be possible.
But what would it tell us about that ant? They look like little robots. Programmed.
That's why. Little data about the ant. But at the same time, being among so many, it's almost impossible to know things about just that one ant. That's why the supercomputer. And even so, the result would be inaccurate and also useless. Okay, and Yazhi, another question that many people ask. Why is there Shiva statue in Cern? What do they mean by that? Aren't they supposedly afraid of him, Pluto, Shiva? Do they want to divert attention as if they are not afraid of him, maybe? They take him as a destroyer of worlds, but in their favor. That has been discussed quite a bit in conspiracy circles. Putting Shiva there is not a good sign. What do you mean it is not a good sign? That portal will destroy the world, because it indicates that it is a portal that destroys worlds, because dark entities enter from there. I think that what they want is to force the energy of Shiva in their favor. It may be because when Pluto is at a certain point in its orbit or approaching Earth, things happen. But it may be just because they use it symbolically. But don't you think they are taking their time with the Cern to open a portal, or have they already done it? They open and close it constantly. It's a passage of dark entities in there that cause rifts in all humanity. It is the entrance and exit of entities that the Cabal worship and offer sacrifice to. But they do not know that Shiva is supposedly the destroyer of their world? Or does that then depend on the perspective? Maybe in a zone where the Cern is, the portal opens with the alignment of Pluto, the Earth, and the Sun. Yes, although the portal technology would not need the alignment with anything. But in their rituals, they may see them as necessary. But you have to understand that all rituals are to modify the vibratory frequency of the place, site, or a person or persons, to be equal to that of the entity they wish to invoke. Okay, but I don't understand one thing. We have said that Pluto and Shiva mean the destruction of their world. Why do they see it their way? Or that's how it works, that you can interpret it depending on the individual perspective. That's right. In my data, it is clearly about them. Because the energy of Shiva is to unveil and expose the lies, deceptions, liars and deceivers. Therefore, that would protect the interests of the human population and not those of the deceitful Cabal. If they are the liars and manipulators, Shiva's energy would go against them and not the people. Then why do they see it the other way around? Maybe because they don't quite know what you are saying? First of all, I don't have the answer. But I think it has to do with an attempt to neutralize that esoteric energy in their favor. I think they know it very well.